A 25-year-old man who was in quarantine in Nepalganj died of COVID-19 yesterday, the second death in Nepal due to the novel coronavirus infection. Meanwhile, 14 more COVID-19 cases were confirmed in Nepal yesterday, taking the infection tally in the country to 295. The death toll of Nepalese abroad due to COVID-19 has also climbed to 96, as more than 7,000 Nepalese have been infected in 30 countries so far. Good morning, I'm Abhyuday Shrestha, and these are the headlines of the hour. Nepal records its second death due to COVID-19. The second victim, a 25-year-old man in Nepalganj. The total number of coronavirus cases in the country climbs to 295. Parliament's International Relations Committee terms the statement of the Indian Army Chief over Nepal-India border issue as irresponsible and provocative, directs government to respond at diplomatic level. Italy and Spain and a number of other European countries set to further ease their coronavirus lockdown restrictions from today. And league leaders Bayern Munich blank Berlin Union 2-0 in the Bundesliga, take a clear 4-point lead in the league table. The government has decided to extend the nationwide lockdown until 2nd of June amid the growing coronavirus cases across the country and with 2 deaths due to COVID-19 so far. A meeting of the Council of Ministers held at the Prime Minister's official residence in Balwatar yesterday evening took the decision. Earlier yesterday, the high-level committee formed to prevent and contain the coronavirus outbreak in the country had recommended the government to further extend the lockdown in view of the rising number of coronavirus cases. The government has been imposing the nationwide lockdown since 24th of March in a bid to contain the novel coronavirus outbreak in the country. A 25-year-old man died of novel coronavirus infection in Nepalganj yesterday, the second death due to the virus in Nepal. He was staying in quarantine in Narayanpur, Nepalganj after returning from India on 12th of May. Meanwhile, health experts have termed the death of the individual in quarantine center itself is blatant carelessness on the part of the concerned authority. They have cited that the cause of his death was due to the delay in receiving the required treatment. The deceased was unconscious after vomiting and fever yesterday morning. 8 other individuals staying at the same quarantine center have already tested positive for coronavirus. A 29-year-old woman from Sindhupalchok died on Saturday of COVID-19 a week after delivering her baby at the capital's Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. 14 more individuals have tested positive for novel coronavirus in the country yesterday, taking the national tally of infections to 295. 2 individuals from Morang, 1 each from Dhankuta and Baki districts, and 10 from Rautahat district were detected with the virus yesterday. The 34-year-old infected woman from Dhankuta is a medical professional at Dhankuta Hospital. Coronavirus infections have been detected for the first time in Dhankuta and Morang districts, taking the total districts with coronavirus infections in the country to 30. According to the Ministry of Health and Population, altogether 1,469 individuals were tested through the PCR method in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, amid widespread calls to expedite the coronavirus tests in the country, the government of India has provided 30,000 PCR kits to Nepal. Altogether, 346 individuals have been kept in isolation across the country so far in suspicion of contracting coronavirus, while 382 others have been kept in the red zone. Meanwhile, the maternity ward at the capital's Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital has been closed after a 29-year-old woman who had delivered a baby at the hospital died on Saturday due to coronavirus. Meanwhile, the hospital administration has also been identifying the doctors and other medical professionals who had come in contact with the deceased woman and collecting their swab samples for coronavirus tests. The capital's Gongabu area, where the woman had been residing before delivering the baby, has also been sealed while the swab samples are being collected of the members of the house where the woman had been living and other people who had come in contact with her. Terming the statement made by Chief of the Indian Army General M.M. Naravane over the Nepal-India border issue as irresponsible and provocative, the Parliament's International Relations Committee has directed the government to take offense to the statement at the diplomatic level. The meeting of the Parliamentary Committee held yesterday afternoon concluded that the statement of the Indian Army Chief was objectionable with regard to Limpiadhura, Lipulek and Kalapani, among other Nepalese territory encroached by India. Indian Army Chief Naravane on 15th of May had stated through media that there was no dispute regarding the Lipulek region and that the government of Nepal had raised the issue out of incitement of a third party. Lawmakers at the Parliamentary Committee meeting said that the remark of the Indian Army Chief was not only irresponsible but also a direct interference on Nepal's internal affairs and sovereignty. Meanwhile, the government of Nepal has already expressed discontent over the construction of a road link by India through Nepal's Lipulek region by sending a diplomatic note to the southern neighbor. Meanwhile, the government has made it clear that Nepal would never relent to any pressure nor get influenced by any statement when it comes to the encroachment of the country's territory. Responding to the controversial statement of the Indian Army Chief that Nepal has been raising the border issue out of incitement of a third party, Foreign Minister Pradeep Gewali said that Nepal had always safeguarded its sovereignty while many other nations had been colonialized at some times in the past. Talking to Kantipur television, Foreign Minister Gewali stated that a professional institution like the Army should keep up with its ethics, citing that only political entities could speak or make statements on political matters, especially when it comes to border issues between two countries. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Gewali also pledged to rescue around 20,000 Nepalese stranded in foreign countries within the next 2 weeks. President of the main opposition, Nepali Congress, Sherbahadur Deuba, has blamed the government of failing to come up with the annual policies and programs that would prove instrumental in containing the coronavirus outbreak and winning the public's confidence. Speaking at the meeting of the House of Representatives yesterday afternoon, Nepali Congress President Deuba criticized the policies and programs of being ineffective of attaining any immediate and concrete results. He also alleged the government of failing to curb corruption despite its claim of containing irregularities. Deuba said that even the government's ministers have been involved in corruption and alleged the Prime Minister himself had been indulged in protecting the culprits. Nepali Congress President Deuba also accused the government of failing to bring in enough medical equipment to contain the coronavirus outbreak even in the past 4 months and sluggishness in expediting the virus tests. At the meeting, Deputy Leader of the Nepal Communist Party's Parliamentary Party, Subhas Chandra Nemwang, however, insisted that the government's policies and programs would prove effective in containing the coronavirus outbreak in the country. He added that the government's commitment to unveil a national map by including the Lipulek region is an important step forward. The discussion on the government's policies and programs would continue until tomorrow. Welcome back. Although many Nepalese who were stranded at the border transits have returned, it has been a challenge for the local governments to arrange for their accommodation, as all the returnees should mandatorily abide by the quarantine provision. The local administrations have helped the Nepalese nationals return to Nepal who had earlier been staying at the quarantine centers at the Indian side of the border. According to the agreement forged, a local authority in Rupandehi is supposed to arrange for quarantine for 1,000 Nepalese who have returned from India. Although all 16 local authorities in Rupandehi each agreed to keep 1,000 returnees in quarantine, many have failed to manage quarantine centers. Hundreds of Nepalese have started gathering at India's Sunoli market area on a daily basis after India resumed its railway service. There are still more than 1,000 Nepalese stranded at India's Notan Hawa who have completed their quarantine period, while there are 2 times the number of Nepalese outside the quarantine centers. Some of the people's representatives in different villages in Rupandehi linked to the border with India have been allowing only the residents of their respective regions to enter Nepal, but without health screening at the border transits. However, all the returnees are required to be kept in quarantine before they could return to their homes. But besides quarantine centers, there has emerged scarcity of isolation centers in different districts where there are thousands of citizens who have returned from India, and others, those are at risk of contracting coronavirus and are required to adhere to precautionary measures to prevent the virus from spreading to others. Welcome back. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And here's the question. What's your take on local youths causing obstructions in the name of precaution against coronavirus? Your options are A, anarchy, B, weakness of local level, and C, consequence of fear. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. It's time now for our special segment, Off the Beat.
A majority of development projects across the country have remained shut due to the nationwide lockdown. The hydropower and road construction projects in Province 1, however, have been unaffected by the lockdown. The provincial government has also continued operation of other development projects with priority. For instance, works on 3 hydropower projects in Solukhumbu districts have continued despite the nationwide lockdown. Likewise, the construction of Mideri Bridge, aimed at connecting Mount Everest to the world, has also continued. Similarly, works on Koshi Corridor, Rabirake Road construction and Mid-Hill Highway project, along with road development projects and Koshi Highway, have moved forward without hindrance amid the lockdown. The nationwide lockdown has also not affected the development projects in Morang, Sunsari and Jaba, while RCC on Kotang Diktel Road section and blacktopping of Mahure Gaighat Road section that adjoins Kotang district to the country's eastern region have continued without hindrance. The number of Nepali migrant workers losing their employment in the Gulf countries and Malaysia has been steadily rising due to the coronavirus pandemic. Although the government has decided to bring home the stranded Nepali nationals by spending the welfare fund, the decision is yet to get implemented. Likewise, the Nepalese embassies in their respective countries too have remained ineffective in supporting the Nepali migrant workers. Especially, the companies based on crude oil in the Gulf countries have started laying off Nepali workers due to the coronavirus pandemic. Many migrant workers have been stranded in these Gulf countries due to shutting down of their employer companies, while others have been left without jobs due to the expiry of their contracts. The Nepalese embassies in the host countries, however, have continued to shy away from their responsibilities, citing the lack of budget to support and rescue the Nepali workers. The embassies have even failed to undergo diplomatic initiatives with their respective governments to arrange for accommodation and food for the migrant workers. Meanwhile, most of the fertile lands in Nepal have remained barren for years, mainly due to the youth's distraction towards agriculture coupled with the government's unclear policies that has failed to motivate the young generation to abide by the profession and opt for commercial farming. However, the barren agricultural lands have now started being transformed as hundreds of youths working abroad have returned home and started farming after losing employment in host countries due to the coronavirus crisis. Many youths in Kathmandu and other urban regions have also taken to farming after returning to their home districts due to losing their regular sources of income as a result of the nationwide lockdown. Although Nepal being considered an agriculture-based economy, this sector has largely failed to flourish as many youths in the country have opted for jobs in the urban areas and abroad, especially due to not seeing lucrative outcomes in farming in the country. This has not only hampered overall agricultural production, but has also been forcing the country to highly rely on imports to meet the citizens' consumption demand. The ongoing nationwide lockdown imposed in a bid to prevent and contain coronavirus outbreak in the country, however, has turned out to be somehow beneficial to the agriculture sector, which is likely to bear fruit if the youths who have opted for agriculture during this crisis would continue sticking to it in a more commercial and productive fashion. This is Bipashna Tamang for a special segment of The Beat, and Kantipur News Desk.
And that's all for the moment. Keep watching Kantipur Television HD for more news and entertainment. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and stay safe.